Well, by the clock on my computer, it is 6 p.m. So I think
Recording in progress.
we just started recording, calling to order the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Board of Directors meeting on Wednesday, October 15th at 6 p.m. We do have a quorum. Are there any changes or modifications to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, on to group expectations and public comment period. Group expectations, if I recall, are really about the norms by which we behave. So there we go. Emma, thank you for posting those in the chat. Draw your attention to those. As you're looking at those, public comment period, are there any members of the public with comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda? I am not hearing any. So let's charge forward into item 3, staff introductions. So this is a thing that we've been doing recently to help board members become familiar with staff and maybe vice versa. So staff introductions, Anne, you are A, so you're up first, I believe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Janda. I am an energy project manager at CCRPC. I've been with the organization since 2021. And my role is to help municipalities and the region implement their energy goals. I also assist with some energy planning and climate action goals, depending on what municipalities are looking for support on. I support all the energy committees in all the municipalities. They often get informational emails from me and I let them know about events and things they might want to get involved in. I also staff the Chittenden County Communications Union District, which is an 8-municipality member union that formed to bring broadband to the unserved and underserved locations in the in that district within all those 8 municipalities. And lastly, I just started working on a project supporting the small water districts in the county, fire districts who might need some assistance. So yeah, I get involved in various energy policy questions and things like that. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments for Anne? I'd only note, Anne, that I appreciate the work that you're doing in the context of the vagaries of federal policy at the moment regarding energy policy.
Yeah, it's a little challenging, the financial landscape right now, but there's still a lot going on. We've been doing some EV charging planning and fleet electrification studies, and some municipalities are making some bold moves in that regard. So
awesome.
Stuff is still happening, yeah.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I'm just wondering, I assume you're probably involved in the state's climate action plan, and I think that's maybe the next update or the plan is done now, but have you been involved in that, and is there anything big picture you can say about that?
We've been involved in it to a small degree, giving our input at the input sessions, and they also the state also utilized all the RPCs to help them do some public outreach and get people to events and that type of thing. I think it's a very ambitious list of items.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah.
And
Thanks.
another quick question on electricity. I know we had, oh, 2, 3 years ago, or probably 5 or 6 years ago, folks were trying to run power lines down the middle of the lake and then cut through near Rutland or Panton and all that, trying to avoid, I think, some of the issues they were having in New Hampshire with their northern power line that was coming through. Is there anything going on in coming down from the north? Any energy plans that you're aware of that you can speak to, similar to that, or enhancement of our existing pathways?
No, not that I'm aware of. I went to the REV conference today. That's the Renewable Energy Vermont Conference. I do know that most of our utilities have long-term energy contracts. So we're in pretty good shape in terms of energy purchases until well into the mid 2030s. If that helps answer your question.
Thank you. Garrett, you have your hand up.
Sorry, had to unmute. Actually, in response to Chris's question, the Buell's Gore alternate, aka my brother, is actually totally involved with Velco and the process of bringing power down from Quebec. And the last iteration, excuse me, was looking at using the existing right-of-ways, just adding a line to them. So you've already got the big lines running along this way, putting one right alongside it, so no new right-of-way was necessary. However, largely due to all the federal uncertainties and everything, that whole project is on hold. I don't have all the details, but I think that's basically it. Anyway, thought I'd toss that out for what it's worth.
Thank you, Garrett. And hopefully this isn't a random question, but has energy transmission across borders hit like the tariff kind of terrain? Has that come up?
Yes, it has. Not to mention, shall we say, a bit of displeasure with our friends to the north with the US. Yes, it's dramatically affected things.
Taylor would know more about that than me. I think he's been on those in those meetings.
Garrett is correct. That's what I'll add. The tariffs will impact us and will impact electricity prices in Vermont.
Thank you. So even at times that we think we're so distant from things, we have a great deal with Hydro-Quebec. Federal policy can trickle down, I guess. Anything else for Ann? Hearing nothing. Item 3B, Forrest.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Forrest Cohen. I'm the business director. I joined the CCRPC in 2008. A little bit about my background. I'm not a native Vermonter, I guess. I'm a first generation Vermonter. I was born in Southern Vermont, grew up in the Northeast Kingdom. As Taylor likes to point out, the most least resource town in the state, East Haven, Vermont. Not quite sure what that means, but went to high school in Lindenville. Go Vikings. After that, attended Western State College in Gunnison, Colorado, where I majored in snowboarding and mountain biking, and also managed to graduate in 2000. Moved back to Vermont shortly after that, and ended up going to grad school at UVM, did a Master's of Public Administration program there, and was hired by Cope and Associates. Some of you may be familiar with Cope or Paula. They're an org development consulting firm. But anyway, she hired me fresh out of grad school. I worked there for a couple of years and really gravitated more toward the operational business aspects of the organization versus being a stand and deliver consultant. I actually applied for the CCRPC out of the paper from a 7 days ad, old school. And I believe I was the first person that Charlie hired. He joined the RPC shortly before me. So that was about 17 years ago. So as a business director now, I oversee the business office with my three colleagues, Amy and Trudy and Kim. We gather all of the data to allow us to invoice our grants. We make sure all our bills are paid, make sure our employees are paid, administer the benefits. I also oversee contracting, write policy, do some compliance work. Obviously, the annual audit is on my plate. Tracking and reporting financial performance. I'll do some of that tonight. And then also some of the planning and budgeting for what's coming up next. And just a more exciting thing for us, we don't always get a lot of exciting things coming through the business office. We're kind of, the backbone of the organization, but we are doing some system upgrades to our timekeeping and our accounting software, which could be really cool and really save us a lot of time. And that's also part of this bigger organizational effort to upgrade some of our project management and communications tools as well. So pretty cool stuff. And having my three colleagues in the business office now is helping us to, focus on things outside of the daily grind. So any questions? I know Ann had it tough.
Dana.
Thank you for your good work, Forrest.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Dana.
Yeah, I will say I haven't been around for all those years, but from what I hear, the oral history is we are in better financial shape than we used to be.
Yeah, I think that's objectively true. Yeah. And I think we can attribute that to Charlie's administration, and I'm, happy to be part of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Forrest. Any other questions or
you.
comments for Forrest? If not, let's move on to item 4, draft minutes of September 17th. We've treated these in different ways over time, either the chair asking for comments and declaring them final, at times done motions. I've gotten feedback from a couple of board members that they prefer a vote. So I guess looking for a vote to approve the draft minutes as presented for September 17th.
Also move
I'll
with
second.
the obvious corrections from you know who.
So yes, moved and seconded. Does anybody have any additional comments or suggestions?
Well, actually, this was very clean and crisp.
So no edits or modifications to
No.
the minutes? Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor, please either raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any abstentions? I'm actually going to abstain too. And
Brad
Mike,
Holden. Brad
Mike-
Holden abstain. I didn't watch the recording. I was not present.
and Brad, Mike, and Bart abstaining. Any nays? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 5. So item 5, the Transportation Improvement Program TIP amendment. For those of you who sat through the training that preceded tonight's meeting, there was sort of an introduction to that for newer folks. Who's going to take the lead on the TIP here? Christine, is that
I
you?
will.
Thank you.
Christine Ford, Transportation Planning. So this is, excuse me, this is a minor TIP amendment to add funds to the Route 15 paving. This goes between the Winooski City Line and Susie Wilson Road, Colchester to Essex. As just a background, we did talk about this earlier. These funds have to be in the TIP in order for the project to move forward. This project is ready to be bid for construction. That will happen before the end of this month, so we need this change to be made. It is a minor amendment, 24% increase in project cost, and is a list of reasons for the change. Part of it is they're doing some additional work to prepare for a signal project that's coming in a few years, and then just some change in the pavement design that's adding a bit more money. So if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Otherwise, I'll move approval of the proposed TIP amendment.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
So Bart, Jeff is here with me in the office. So you see CCRPC, we are in the office, so Jeff just joined me.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So approval of the TIP amendment has been moved and seconded. Are there any other comments or questions regarding the minor TIP amendment as presented?
Quick question, if I could. Christine,
Mike.
when is it going to start? Is it next spring?
I believe next spring is it's going to be bid, and so that'll take that bid process.
Thanks.
I can let you know for certain, but that's my estimate.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any, so let's move to the vote. Calling the vote. All in favor of approving the TIP amendment as presented, please either say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? So that passes unanimously. On to item 6. Forrest, I suspect this is you, the draft FY25 year-end financial results.
I think you are right, sir. If I can share my screen with folks. Hopefully everyone's looking at a balance sheet. Sorry about
Yes.
that. I'm going to move through the high points here, but obviously at any time, slow me down, ask questions. You all saw a preliminary version of this report a month ago, I think. So the only thing that's changed there is that we have some improvement in our bottom line numbers, so that's a good thing. So looking at our balance sheet previous year comparison, it's just helpful to see where we were last year versus this year. We have about $1 million in the bank, split between our operating account and our reserve account. And our accounts receivable, this number represents all of the money that's owed to us, invoices that we put out there. That's a little higher than it was last year. This is a bunch of accountant gobbledygook with lease and things. We won't spend a lot of time there, but this is mostly, I don't mean to diminish this, but this is a lot of book stuff. Doesn't have a lot of bottom line effects. Accounts payable, so those are all the bills we need to pay. Fortunately, our accounts receivable are about $200,000 more than this number. Is that right? No, 500,000. So that's good. We have more money coming in than we have to send out. That's always a good ratio. And bottom line, our net income is $95,220 for the year, which is a little not quite as good as last year, but still a solid result. And also we can see that we've spent out all of our ACCD funds, excuse me, and also our municipal dues. They're not listed because we've spent it all. It's a very quick run through the balance sheet. Questions, comments, answers there.
Forrest,
Okay.
John
Yes. Yeah.
Kingston from Heinsberg. It's the first time I've really kind of seen this.
Yeah.
I see a deferred, or no, I'm sorry, net pension liability.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that a defined benefit plan for all the employees?
Yeah. So we work with VEMR's. So Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System, and there is a DB, a defined benefit plan under VEMR's that not all of our employees participate in, but many of them do. And because of that, the accounting rules require that we list the asset, our share of the liability on our books.
Got it.
It's an accounting rule. And so, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have been so dismissive about gobbledygook, but it is
No,
one
that's
of those
fine.
things where we're required to show it on our statements. However, hopefully we'll never actually be on the hook for, $1 million of the overall pension liability. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for
You-
Forrest?
Picking up on that, Forrest.
Yeah.
It's the same this year as last year. I thought in the past that it fluctuated. That net pension liability.
Oh, it will. Yeah. Mike, so the auditors haven't done their adjusting to it yet. So there will be a journal entry and we'll see, how the actuaries and how the performance lined up. And there will be an adjustment to that. Just hasn't happened yet.
Hey, Forrest, this is Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at common area management fees, or CAM,
Yep.
and I'm seeing a double-digit increase there. What's driving that? And is this, our landlord is getting a bunch of increased costs and they're looking for ways to stick it in CAM?
Yeah, well, and they're supposed to pass through their real costs and not necessarily stick it to us, but yeah, we have to, that would be increased maintenance costs year over year.
Watch the salary portion of that, because that's what can drive this.
Yeah, indeed. Not sure how much control we have over that, but yeah.
They usually send you a CAM reconciliation, right, with the
Yep.
with the distribution of it, and I
They do.
can't remember our lease. Let's make sure that they're not charging us over a cap that might be in our lease for CAM charges and stuff like that.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Any
Will do.
other questions or comments for Forrest?
Jeff, we must have skipped down into our revenues versus expenses, right?
Yeah.
So that's fine. And
thank you for the perspective of the previous year. It's very helpful.
yeah, absolutely. That was a really good suggestion to do that. Would folks like to see the revenues versus expenses against the budget? We can look at that quickly, or I can highlight it. A couple highlights about it. We did 8.5 million in revenue in FY25, which was over $2 million more than FY24, so a pretty large increase there. And a lot of that had to do with a couple of pass-through grants, so a lot of consultant costs. But the transportation program also did $800,000 more than last year, 20%. So that's real. Also, staff billed out at 105% of budget. So read that as staff time. Here, I'm talking about things that you guys can't see, so that's not helpful.
Thank
Apologies.
you, Forrest.
Yeah. Tried and was failing. So looking at against budget here. So what I'm referring to is down here, bottom right-hand corner. This is our budgeted staff time, basically operations support. So 101.5% of budgeted. That's great. And actually 70% of our direct project revenue is also a nice number for us as well. And if we come down here, our expenses were only at 98.2, if my eyes aren't failing me. So we end up with our surplus. And I feel like Bart asked a really good question when we looked at this, probably at the executive committee, which was, is there anything about these numbers that, give you pause or show concern? And what I said at the time, and I'll say it again, is that the one thing I do think about, or one of the things I think about, is the indirect rate and whether we over collected or under collected over the year, because we start the year with an estimate and then settle up at the end. But given the fact that we had unallocated dues that we were able to allocate to revenue, which were about $100,000, and our net revenue over expenses is about $100,000, leads me to believe that that surplus is pretty much all related to those unallocated dues and not over collecting. So it's a reasonable conjecture that the indirect rate was not out of whack last year, which would be great. Hopefully what I just said makes sense.
Well,
Jeff?
first, one other issue, and it's not on these numbers,
Yeah,
but we're into mid-October now. So
Yep.
we're 3.5 months into the new year.
mm-hmm,
If you recall, the first 4 or 5 months of last year were pretty rough
yep.
on us. Do you have any sense, are we tracking better? You think, without having had the benefit of presenting us with the numbers for the
Yeah.
first quarter, since we're only 2 weeks past the end of the first quarter. But, we had some pretty big negative numbers in terms of revenues versus receipts. So 1 month in particular, it was over $120,000 to the negative. Do you have any sense? Do you have any sense of how we're doing so far this year? I know that, we had lower than usual billings because we had some leave issues and things like that with, people weren't here. Are we doing better? Is it your sense the first quarter of this year, relative to last?
I don't know enough to say for sure, Jeff. That's just the honest answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So
I realized it was a question about numbers that weren't here, but
yeah,
mostly that's for the finance committee members and somebody like me. I want to make sure that we don't have a seasonality issue or something like that we've got to try to deal with.
yeah, indeed. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the similar cycle of vacations, et cetera, July, August. However,
Maybe
I don't
not
know.
Q3.
I don't know enough to say. I do know that we're closing in on September pretty quickly here, which is great. The staff is doing a lot of work to get our numbers closed in a more timely manner, our months closed, and that's going to help. So it's in process, but
Yeah, I was
It's not
sorry.
true.
I was sorry I missed the executive committee. I had a business commitment that night.
no
Thanks,
problem.
Jeff. So
Yep.
Forrest, it
Yes, sir.
seems to me that that's kind of a topic for another day when we look at the first quarter, to Jeff's question, and what those numbers look like.
Yeah, I need to bring you the first quarter, and yeah, we should be able to do that early November.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Barney, Forrest has been here just so long. I figure he had his finger on the pulse and he could tell me exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it's just too many different pulses, Jeff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So that part to be continued. Anything else on 25 year-end draft? All right. Moving on to item 7, draft 2027 municipal dues. So this is an action item. I think we have a corrected version for us. Was that
Yes.
Essex and Essex Junction?
Yes, with much apologies to the town and the junction, and thank you very much, Scott, for flagging that so we could fix that. This all works much better when the correct town is lined up with the correct numbers. So just quickly, in case there are people who haven't gone through this that often, the municipal dues are assessed each year. The primary purpose of those is to match our transportation program. There is a 20% match required with federal dollars, and the state helps us with some of those, but the rest of that, and you saw those, those numbers are $4 or $5 million overall. So it's not a small number. The way that we apportion the county, in this case, among our member municipalities, is to use the equalized education grand list. And in the table here that I'll share, are folks seeing this? Table 1? Yes, thank you. So we can see year over year the list. The percent of county is the apportionment, and then we have the change, which is interesting to see. So the grand list grew overall by $41.5 million. The index that we tag or asks for increases to is the Employment Cost Index, ECI, which is a Bureau of Labor Statistics number. And that number is for state and local government employees. I think the rationale is that, the CCRPC's operational costs might grow along with that number, the amount we have to pay our staff. So it's not perfect, but that's what we use. The change in the ECI for state and local government employees year over year was 4% this past year. This was the amount that we proposed to the executive committee to increase the dues for FY27. You can see in the table here, overall, we're not talking huge numbers, $11,000 overall. However, these are all real numbers for each municipality, so that's not something we take lightly. We're trying to balance this with making sure that we're prepared to match not only the transportation program, but potentially have unrestricted funds to match or to use for our other needs. The municipal dues are our only unrestricted funds that we have. So the 4% increase was the recommendation from the executive committee to the full board. I also just always provide the 0% increase just to see the pure movement from the equalized education grand list, which is interesting, but the question before you is whether you would like to approve this number or some other number. And I'll defer to the executive committee if anybody wants to speak to this further.
Thanks, Forrest. Are there any questions or comments about the use of the dues or the formula used to produce the numbers, or the 4%, which is tied to a BLS percentage?
Don't we need a motion before discussion? Also move to accept them.
All right, moved. Is there a second? Thank you, Andy. Any questions or comments or concerns? Mike?
Garrett, just to be clear, your motion was to approve the 4% increase? Okay.
And the dues
Clicking the
table was,
mute didn't work.
All right.
So the motion as approved and seconded is to approve the revised dues representing a 4% increase as illustrated in the table. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. All in favor, please either raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any nays? I see none. Any abstentions? I see none. So that passes unanimously among those present and voting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, I think this is you again, moving on to the 2629 tip.
It is me again. I have just a few slides that we can go through.
Mr. Chair, would motion in order be in order to open the public hearing that we warned?
And
Yeah,
I'll second that motion, Jeff, if you made it.
Yes,
Is
I
that-
did.
thank you, Jeff and Chris. So motion to open the public hearing. Um, any other comments about the motion? Hearing none, please raise your hand or say aye if you approve of the motion.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We are in the public hearing. Thank you, Christine.
Sorry. So we had a presentation on this last month, just a couple things just to remind us all of what we're doing. So the Transportation Improvement Program is the list of projects that will be implemented over the next 4 years is the plan. It is a fiscally constrained list based on funds that we actually expect to be available, and any project that moves forward in Chittenden County using federal highway funds has to be listed on the tip. Whoops, sorry about that. So it's $309 million over the 4 years. This list just shows the amount per year: 83.7, 91.7, 67.2, and 66. This is across a list of 76 projects in the categories that are listed. This is how we're defining them: sidewalks and paths, bridge preservation, intermodal projects, that's park and ride in Colchester, new facility, major roadway upgrades, paving, 11 paving projects, some corridor improvements, safety, traffic operations, and ITS. Those are mainly intersection projects. And 72.1 million for transit, and then the stormwater environmental are state grants for stormwater projects. This table just shows how the funding categories show up over the by categories. The highest category is transit, 23.4%. A lot of that transit money is grants, FTA grants that go to directly to Green Mountain Transit, and then a lot of bridges, some roadway corridor improvements. We can talk about specifics if folks have questions, and there we are. So this is for the tip item, and then we'll talk about the certification of planning process after. And I'm going to unshare,
Thank you, Christine.
I think. Stop share.
Comments or questions? Any public comments in particular during this public hearing about the tip? Seeing and hearing none.
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second? Jackie, second. Thank you. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The public hearing is now closed. Now we contemplate adoption of the tip.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the FY 26 to 29 Transportation Improvement Program.
I second.
Jeff. Thank you, Benjamin. Moved and seconded. Any additional comments about the tip or this motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? So that is unanimous of the people present and voting.
Mr. Chair, I move we certify the planning process and authorize you to sign the letter.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jeff and Chris. Any other comments on the certifying of the planning process? Hearing none, moving to a vote on the motion to certify the planning process. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? That is again unanimous of the people present and voting. Thank you very much, Christine. Moving on to item 9, draft Ecos Regional Plan.
I am not going to have a PowerPoint presentation tonight. I am just going to refer the board to the memo in your packet. We did the full presentation on the ECOS plan. We talked about process. We talked about changes at our September meeting. Board members were asked to provide any comments on the plan before October 3rd. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Christine, for digging deep and reading the whole thing and providing comments. Jackie, a lot of Jackie's comments, she can speak for herself, but we're mostly grammatical. We've been able to address those in a revised version of the plan. A lot of Christine's comments, there were some grammatical, but some were more substantive, asking for an executive summary, for example. And I think we're going to try to address Christine's comments in a second draft after our first public hearing in January 2026. Jackie, anything to add?
Nope, just you guys, the committee, planning committee, you all worked really hard and I appreciate your efforts.
Well, I appreciate you taking a look at that very, very long document. So we're in a place now where our long-range planning committee met on September 30th after your last meeting to see revised housing targets. If you remember, we had an issue in terms of a mapping problem with Essex's sewer core district. We've solved that. Now we have revised housing targets that are a little bit more accurate, a little bit more about in terms of what you saw in March. And therefore, the Long Range Planning Committee, as shown in your packet, is recommending that the board start the pre-application process to adopt the 2026 ECOS plan, and that the board warn its first public hearing on adoption for January 21st, 2026. I can show those revised housing targets on the screen real quick if you guys want to see them, but they're pretty close to what you saw. The biggest swing was Williston getting 300 more in 2050. Not a huge number. Any comments or questions for me before you guys perhaps entertain a motion?
I'm seeing none. I'll note that there is a proposed motion in your packet with the two parts, if anybody wants to move
Dana
that.
has her hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I
sorry.
would just like
Thanks.
to echo the suggestion that we do an executive summary, and hoping that maybe we could get that done before the January hearing would be great.
I will try my best, Dana, and we can get it in after January. But yes, I loud and clear that we need to do some sort of summary or direction to readers to where content is in the plan that's a little bit more simple.
Well, if the Long Range Planning Committee can help you with that, I would volunteer us.
Thank you,
All right,
Dan.
I'll be happy to make a motion to submit the draft 2026 ECOS plan to the Land Use Review Board for 60-day pre-application review and warn the first public hearing on the draft plan for January 21st, 2026.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Chris.
This is Garrett.
Garrett, moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the draft 26 ECOS regional plan, the submission to the LURB, or the first public hearing?
Well, we need to acknowledge the amount of work and movement that has gone into getting this draft ready, and thank Taylor and all the staff that have done heroic heavy lifting.
And commissioners.
Commissioners, yes, but I consider the number of meetings and all the work that's gone into it is fairly stupendous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Agreed, Chris. This is a significant project and product. Any other comments on the motion?
Thank you, folks. I'm the one that talks a lot, but a lot of staff here put in a lot of time and effort, and as Garrett mentioned too, a lot of you commissioners did a lot of footwork, a lot of work at the local level to help explain what was going on to your municipalities, and that's very much appreciated by our staff. I think it's been a relatively smooth process so far, and we hope to make it a collaborative process moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Any other comments before we move to a vote? So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion as moved and seconded, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? That motion has been approved again by all the members present and voting. We are now on to item 10, outreach.
Hey, Bud,
Yes.
it's Garrett. I just wanted to toss out a comment that a lot of the newer commissioners might not have any idea of how much the regional plan has changed over the years. Back when I was vice chair and chair, I headed up the regional plan committee. There was a specific committee for doing it back then. You know, we're talking 20 years ago or a little bit less than that. And the amount of work done on this plan has got to be 20 times as much as we did back then. It's just staggering how much more complete and complex this plan is, and the amount of work all these folks put into it is just truly amazing. Just wanted to toss that out.
Thank you, Garrett, for that perspective, which we sometimes miss given the sometimes incremental change year to year. We may miss the substantial change over a sequence of years. Any other comments? All right. Returning to the agenda, the outreach and engagement update. This is a discussion item.
And I'll take this one, standing in for Ann Nelson, who is traveling right now and was unable to be here. So I won't walk through everything here. This is the final page in your packet, but just wanted to call out a few specific things and then open it up for questions if anyone has them. So this memo just kind of describes what the Community Engagement Advisory Committee has been up to. There are links there to both the August and September meeting. Next week, a week from tonight, they're meeting again virtually. This meeting is primarily to discuss that draft volunteer stipend policy that is part of the public participation plan. And so the executive committee took their first look at that earlier this month, and the board should be prepared to take a look at that at the November meeting. So that's the Community Engagement Advisory Committee is working on that, has been working on that, and Nelson in particular has spent many hours looking at best practices and what other folks are doing regarding compensating folks for their time on our committees and focus groups and the like. So more to come on that. And then just calling out this this economic mobility and opportunity special assistant position, which is it's a grant funded position that is shared between 4 of our member municipalities, so Essex Junction, South Burlington, Shelburne, and Winooski, and would be employed by CCRPC. So hopefully, over the past few weeks, you've seen that job ad go out. We had, I believe the final number was 48 applications for that position. Which was a lot. And so I know Ann Nelson and Charlie and a number of representatives from the town have been reviewing those applications and I believe have started interviewing folks. So that is currently in process. I believe they're hoping to have somebody hired for that position in early December. And then I mentioned before the public participation plan. These updates are ongoing, so we're sort of doing them in smaller chunks. Each chunk is not particularly small, but just a little bit more indigestible for both the Community Engagement Advisory Committee to review and to then take to the board to review. So those 3 items are listed there, the language access plan, I mentioned the volunteer stipend policy, and then this Chittenden County community asset map that's been in this memo for a number of months now. So I said I wasn't going to give a complete update, and I sort of did anyway, but does anyone have any questions on anything I mentioned or anything else?
Emma, I have one, actually a question, then maybe a comment. You mentioned 48 applicants for the special assistant, which seems like a large number to me. And
Yes.
just a question, do you have any observations about that number or how it compares to other hiring and what we might observe about that in our current state?
Yeah, so I think sort of the obvious thing. So it is a grant funded position, so it's a guaranteed, I believe, 2.5 years, time period. So it does offer some stability, for the next few years, which I think is desirable, particularly in this, area of work where it is working with municipalities on equity and policy advising. I do think we advertised in all of the same places we always do, but I think there's just, more interest in this type of work. It does pay pretty well as well. I believe the range is, I want to say, $70,000 to $100,000 per year. And again, that's built into that grant that was received. So it does have a pretty high salary, especially for this area as well. And interesting work. So yeah, those are I don't know if anyone else has any other comments, Taylor, or anyone else who's, worked on this a little bit more, but those are my just kind of main takeaways.
I just said, that's a relatively high number of applications, at least in terms of what I've seen the past 3 or 4 years. For
Yeah.
different positions, land use planner positions, transportation planning positions. Those have been more in the 10 to 15 range in terms of applicants.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. Thanks for your thoughts, Emma. And my only comment then is to encourage board members to look at the volunteer stipend policy, because I think it's one of those things that it started with sort of a scope that was maybe this big, and then it kind of gets way bigger when you start to contemplate the policy implications. So financial considerations, but then considerations about scope, essentially, like who would be eligible for a stipend as well as how much. So something to contemplate when you get that to look at. All right, anything else about outreach and engagement? All right, we'll ask Charlie to discuss legislative breakfast topics. Well, I guess not today.
Yeah, no, Charlie, you got me. I will pinch hit for Charlie. I will just run on the short list he provided me, and then we can have discussion about anything else that can be added to the list.
Thank you, Charlie.
One, housing, pretty broad. I'm not sure where Charlie wants to go with that, but housing. Two, Act 181, specifically changes to Title 24. This is something that the RPCs have been working on. Title 24 is the municipal and regional planning part of statute. It's not Title 10, which is the Act 250 part of Act 181. The legislature, the guidance we're getting is to stay in Title 24. It's a lot of like process updates, small little tweaks, including a tweak to how the land use review board process and the Department of Public Service process is integrated, because the Department of Public Service has jurisdiction over the enhanced energy plan. The LURB has jurisdiction over the rest of the regional plan. Having some changes related to that to make it easier. Transportation funding, that's a huge one. Some of us were at CATMA, or the CATMA conference yesterday, and that was the topic of discussion from some legislators that were in the room. Water and wastewater funding and process to get that money out the door. Plug-in solar, and whether or not that should be easy to do here in Vermont is something we've heard a lot about from our energy partners recently that might result in a bill, just FYI. Also on the sort of energy track, code for e-bike charging. And then as Catherine mentioned earlier in our training, conversations around residential building energy standard and possibly around how that's integrated into the state building code and the jurisdiction in that state building code. Those are the things on Charlie's short list. Bart, I'll kick it back over to you to guide discussion.
Awesome, thank you. Is that in a state that you could share it so we could look at it while we discuss?
I will do my best to copy and paste out of an email. Yes, I will do that.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you who have attended legislative breakfast in the past, it seems to me it's been reasonably well attended. And those who haven't, it's reasonably well attended. And there is some give and take. It's an opportunity to sort of engage legislators in topics of interest to us. So I don't know if people have general comments about the legislative breakfast or the topics presented or additional topics. And it looks like Taylor has dropped that into the chat. So you could look at it.
Art, this is Jeff.
Jeff.
I don't know if everybody recalls last year's legislative breakfast. And you know, we always make a pitch that we're a resource to them, and I always like to have us have at least some factoids for the members of our legislative delegation for how important our county is to the state economy and those types of things. And I guess I was kind of surprised at the reaction of some of our legislators, at least one or two there, that tried to tell us how hard it is, and we don't understand how hard it is for them from Chittenden County to make the case that, you know, Chittenden County isn't deserving of attention from the legislature. So maybe this time we need to give them some talking points, and I'm not exactly sure what the talking points are, about our needs. And just because we're Chittenden County, and I understand there's a lot of Chittenden County envy out there among the other county delegations, but I feel like we need to give our legislators a pep talk and help them to understand that we really need them to sell us, because if you don't feed the tax and economic generating engine of the state, the whole state is poorer, and we're all fighting over leftover crumbs instead of expanding the size of the pie going forward. I was personally, I don't know if other members were too, very taken aback by at least one of the members, House members, that said, but you don't understand how difficult it is down there for us when we're from Chittenden County. And that's not what I want to hear from the people who are supposed to be advocating for us in Mount Hood. I just throw that out as an observation.
So Taylor, maybe add that specifically to the list, the Chittenden County context. And it is an interesting context, Jeff. It seems to me to be most effective, it would be factoids that help to sort of temper the Chittenden County antipathy, or whatever we call it.
But we almost need to be pep talking points.
Yeah. Why Chittenden County matters and why everyone should be interested. And I
And why
suspect,
they should be fighting for us.
and I suspect you could talk about economic productivity, workforce.
Percentage of the population, percentage of the GSP, percentage of the jobs, all those types of things.
Just really quickly, if I could jump in, I just in the chat dropped last year's presentation that we gave to or at this legislative breakfast. That might be helpful, Jeff and others. If you have feedback on that, there is slide number 8 does talk about this a little bit and give some percentages and factoids, as you mentioned. So I would love to, and I'm sure other staff would too, just get some feedback on that and other facts that we might want to include. And because Charlie's, you know, his presentation is guided by what we put together, and you'll see in the slides. So just wanted to drop that there. Feel free to review that.
We just need to help. We need to give them a pep talk that advocate for us. We know it's hard. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they should be any less enthused to do that. I was getting the feeling that, well, you know, there's so much antithesis towards Chittenden County. You don't understand how hard it is to advocate for Chittenden County. And there are reps who, if not them, who?
Yeah, so that might be an interesting question. What are the talking points backed up by facts that might be helpful in counterbalancing some of the
And we
things
should
we
ask them what they think they need.
Yeah.
If we don't have it.
One other thing, and I don't know if this came up last year, I contemplate the diversity of at least parts of Chittenden County compared to many other parts of the state. Just an observation demographically. If I recall correctly, the Winooski school system has something like 20 languages spoken in it. I don't think that's typical of every school around the state.
We can hit on those diversity kind of points in this slide, definitely.
So thanks, Jeff. Other folks, any other comments, questions about either topics or process at the legislative breakfast?
Can you just touch on real quick, like how it works for those of us that haven't been to one yet? Like I get the general idea, but I'm still kind of fuzzy on what exactly it is.
Well, I'll hit the high points and then staff, please fill in. So we invite a bunch of legislators and many of them come from our area, and there are town reps and there are staff. Charlie and the chair typically do a presentation, lead a discussion of a PowerPoint. Then there's some back and forth conversation with people in the room. Breakfast is served. So it actually
And
is a
it's
breakfast.
surprisingly good.
It's not bad for like hotel buffet, right? You know, it's kind of hotel conference center kind of breakfast. And it starts relatively early. People remind me what time it started. Was it 7:30, something like that?
It is typically a 7:30 to 9, and so people kind of trickle in between 7:30 and 8, and we do a presentation beginning right at 8. So, and I'll just add to this that we don't have a date fully picked out yet, but we're eyeing Wednesday, December 10th for this. I'm in some communication with partners just to make sure there's nothing conflicting, that we don't double book legislators because many people are competing for legislators' time at this stage as we go into the next legislative session. And it will be at the same location it's been, just for ease of everyone's access, which is the Delta Hotel in South Burlington. So more information on that coming soon, but yes, that's the typical 7:30 to 9.
The other thing for new members is usually we invite the select boards of all of our member municipalities, and quite a few of them come out.
That's
So it's not
a
just
good point.
not just the legislative delegation and us. We have our legislative body members. We invite them too, and a lot of them come. It's a free breakfast, so gotta get up a little early, but
Emma, you probably have a good sense of how many people show up, like 50-ish?
Yeah, we have typically had anywhere between 50 and 65, and we do get a fairly good turnout, with legislators, and do a lot of outreach and personal, connections with them to try to get them to come. I would say maybe around half of legislators come, typically more representatives, fewer senators, but yeah, every year we try harder, we do different things, and we get a pretty good turnout, so.
Does that help, Tess? Sort of a quick overview? It's worth going to, I think, if you can fit it in your schedule. Any other comments, questions about legislative breakfast?
and that's usually in lieu
I
of a
do.
December meeting, right? It's in lieu of a December board meeting.
Yes. Somebody else, Dana.
Dana. Yeah, I just like to echo Jeff's sentiments about really being cheerleaders for Chittenden County. I think it's really, really important, and he expressed it really, really well. A couple of years ago, I went to the Addison County legislative breakfast, and I'd say the sentiment ranged from envy to antipathy, and it's really out there. And we have so much to crow about in terms of our contribution to the economy of our region and state. And I think it's a great idea, Jeff, to put that out there. And I'd be happy to help staff in putting together anything that crows about us.
Yeah, I just think of the center, like, I don't know what at least this part of Vermont would be like if UVM Medical Center were not sitting in Burlington. Like if you had to go
Seriously.
like to Dartmouth Hitchcock or Albany or something. So
Or
those
the
are just little
airport.
examples.
There's so
The
many
airport.
things.
Yeah. Garrett.
Jeff already knows what I'm going to say, but I just have to repeat it to those who haven't heard it. Dana touched on the antipathy. Having spent so many years as a border community, actually the Gore's border with Chittenden County is its shortest one. Addison is biggest, Washington County's second biggest. The antipathy is very, very real. And we do have to be careful of that. You know, I've spent so many years hearing people talk about Chittenden County's attitude. And so I agree, cheerleading is a great thing, but we have to be very, very careful on how we do it.
It's a good point, Garrett. I think some of the things that Jeff suggested illustrate what Chittenden County does to the benefit of the state as a whole, and maybe that's the positive avenue to take, like that we generate revenue that goes into the state coffers and gets redistributed all over the place, right?
Absolutely. That's a very good point.
I think the big thing is we're helping the people who are supposed to advocate to them, and they're the politicians and they're the people that walk the halls under the gold dome in Montpelier. So they're the ones that know the right time and place to posit a Chittenden County pro position. So we just are trying to help them have an arsenal that they have in their pocket for when the opportunity presents itself in the midst of all the political nuances that they deal with all the time in Montpelier. We've helped them have something in their pocket that they can pull out figuratively, not literally, when the time is right for them to do the advocacy for our area. Because if we don't, you know, and we don't try to help them do that, it may not be as effective as it could. And that's what I'm suggesting. Not that we advocate or that we do that. We're helping our people who play in that environment and do it much better than us, with maybe the exception of Charlie, to do their job, which is to help improve the state by advocating for one of its strengths, which is what we do here in our county.
Thanks. So Charlie not being present, staff, I think this is something that sort of goes forward. I think there's a sense of the flavor, and in terms of content, there may be, there's obviously a fair amount of time between now and then to refine what we might think of as talking points. And Charlie may want to reach out to us again or to specific individuals, it seems to me. Certainly it'll come up when I next meet with them. Anything else on legislative breakfast?
That's it, Bard.
All right. I think this was at least modestly helpful. Thanks. Maybe just if there are any concerns about the list that Taylor shared, or things that you think, oh, this should be at number one and this should be at the bottom. If you have those kind of thoughts about prioritization, that might be helpful as well. Okay. If we're ready, no other comments on to 12. Chair, Executive Director updates. Code of conduct forms, that's a mechanical piece mostly, right?
It is. Yes, I'll take that one. So hopefully you all received a couple emails from me about this, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat again. This is just our request to please read first the code of conduct for board members and committee members that the board adopted earlier this year, and to please take, I think it's only about 2 minutes to just fill out that acknowledgement form that you did read it. Certainly reach out with any questions as well. And I realize that I just wanted to name that I realize this is the first year that we've done this, and it is a little bit clunky as we're kind of getting signatures and kind of doing it after the fact. but this code of conduct will be built into the appointments process for CCRPC representatives. So at the time you are appointed by your municipality, this will be provided to you and it'll be much more streamlined next time. But this is just kind of a weird year as we transition. So again, thank you so much to those who have done it, and just a quick reminder to those who haven't. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Thank you, Emma. If our local town experience with the Code of Ethics is any guide, there will probably be some follow-up to the stragglers to say, hey, by the way, I haven't yet seen the form for this from you. So that might end up with some individual outreach for those who haven't done it. State budget and federal funding issues. I'll just say the state budget process is generally embargoed at this time of year. I understand it's not a good year. Jeff may have other comments about that, it just generally. And then I would also say federal funding. I have no idea what to say about federal funding, given the vagaries of the shutdown and the various actions or attempted actions by the president and pushback and court cases. So it seems to me uniquely uncertain about funding. At the same time, what I've seen and heard is in the area that most impacts the Regional Planning Commission, it doesn't seem like there are high risk areas, although the president has specifically apparently targeted Democratic programs, whatever that means, and Democratic states, in spite of a Republican governor. I don't, like, presumably he thinks of Vermont as a Democratic state, and with a punitive approach that could potentially have an impact. I don't know if other folks have insight onto either state or federal funding.
Bart, I just wanted to add, yeah, in terms of state budget and what Charlie's conveyed to me is what you said, not a great year. VAPTA, so for new board members, VAPTA is the Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies. That's the sort of trade group of the regional planning commissions in the state. VAPTA will, be going to ask the legislature for a 3% increase in the regional plan fund. That's pretty well in line with what we've asked for the last couple of years. I think we're anticipating maybe level funding might be more of a reality at the end of the session. In terms of federal funding, Eleni and Forrest, please speak up if you want to add. But in terms of our short-term and kind of midterm operations here at the RPC, with the shutdown, we don't see any obstacles. I would ask, I think Roger from Federal Highway is here, and I think Matthew from VTrans to add if that is not the case. But first, any Eleni or Forrest, anything to add there?
Nothing from me, Taylor. That's some of the information that we got, that right now the federal funding for formula funds is flowing, unless Roger tells us otherwise.
No, lady, I don't have anything to contradict that. Yeah, those funds will come when they open up the government and they pass either a budget or continuing resolution.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, thanks. Depending on the year, and I don't have great insight into this, but what I understand, some of the state programs, departments, agencies, it's really difficult to just bleed everybody, like reduce everybody by 3% or level fund people for a few years where it just bleeds them. And I perceive there may be conversations rather than bleed everybody, just stop doing something and then adequately fund the other things. So what programs don't you want anymore? Or what do you not want to do, where you just close something to avoid bleeding everybody? So we'll see how that plays out. Anything else on funding? On to Select Board Triannual Forum, a term I've never seen on our agenda before.
Yeah, we're going to do triannual because quarterly seems like too much. So if folks that are on select boards remember, VLCT held a select board training, I think in June or July here in Winooski. There was interest among select board members that attended to meet more frequently. And so we're going to try to take the reins from VLCT and hold a training for select board members 3 times annually. The next training is scheduled for October 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. Commissioners that are not select board members, if you are interested in attending, I think that's fine. Just let Charlie and Emma know. I think we're a little bit worried about capacity of our conference room. But yeah, just really a point of information that we're going to try to keep in contact with select boards and do some training 3 times a year.
What time is the training going to be?
6 p.m. on Thursday, October 30th.
And Taylor, remind me if there's a hybrid or virtual option for this.
Good Emma question.
Yeah, it is just in person, but certainly we can, we can accommodate if someone needed to. But we're providing a meal and hoping folks would show up in our conference room.
I bring it up because I perceive that as one of the strengths that I had heard. It's that it's in person and it's sort of the personal engagement as opposed to the Hollywood squares, if that's a term people are familiar with.
And it's also an opportunity to just share what's going on in different communities. It's not just a training, it's an opportunity to interact, learn from each other and share issues, share solutions. So
yeah, so the title forum sort of leans more that way, Andy, than training per se, a didactic sort of training. And there are things that I think of that I know in Richmond, we bumped into neighboring towns on things like regional policing, a good idea that seems virtually impossible to achieve, as one example that crosses towns.
Is that at the Winooski offices of the RPC?
Yes.
Okay, so put that on your radar. Emma, I think there was also a caution about not having quorums and really trying to keep the representation light. So it's a broad representation as opposed to 5 or 6 people from a single town. Okay. Anything else? Taylor, Emma, do you have anything else from Charlie as updates?
I just wanted to add on, again, this is something I'll put in the chat that we did. We talked a little bit about VAPTA earlier. We did recently submit the CCRPC's annual report for VAPTA, and we also compile the full statewide report for all RPCs. And I just wanted to this will be in our newsletter, but I just wanted to send a link to this as well because it's a really good opportunity to just kind of see what other RPCs are doing around the state, as well as to look through our specific annual report. Again, we'll be sharing more of this in a more digestible way in a different website that's more of a marketing kind of focused thing as we go into the next legislative session. But just wanted to point folks to that as well. There's lots of work being done around the state, so.
And I don't want to overstate this, but for the newer members, if it's not obvious, CCRPC, is it fair to say takes kind of a leadership role among all the RPCs, statewide and at the legislature?
It is fair to say that we do that, yes.
Which wouldn't be obvious if you didn't know, but.
Yeah, yes. Emma helps out on a whole wide array of VAPTA related organization and reporting. I think our staff is really involved in policy discussions, led by Charlie, obviously, but I think our staff contribute probably more than other RPCs. And just generally, we try to be at the table of all the conversations we can to influence policy when we can.
Okay. I think then we're moving on to item 13, committee liaison activities and reports. This is really just an FYI. If you aren't involved in those committees, you can see materials and minutes on the website. Any other comments on committee liaison activities and reports? Moving on to 14, any other members' items that were not covered today? Hearing none, I think, unless there are any final comments, we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
I'll second.
This is Garrett.
Thank you, Garrett.
And Ben, second.
And Ben, thank you both. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? I hear none. Thanks, everybody.
Take
Have
care.
a good rest
Thanks,
of the
Brad.
week.
So long,
Thank you.
Have a
everyone.
good night.
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Bye.